In 1948, the United States Supreme Court passed a decree that changed the landscape of film forever, and it's coming to an end. Referred to as the Paramount Decree, it helped shift power to the artists making independent films and away from the major studios, as well as shining a spotlight on foreign films. I worry that this being sunsetted could be a major problem for the industry. Let's do this. Okay, internet, I usually make videos about a movie or series and assume people watching have already seen the topic, so I can jump right in. But this is different, so we're gonna need some backstory. During the classic Hollywood era, the film industry in the United States was dominated by a handful of major studios known as the Big Five: Paramount Pictures, Warner Brothers, MGM, 20th Century Fox, and RKO Pictures. They either owned or had exclusivity deals with major theater chains, meaning that if the theater wanted to show the latest big film by the studio, they also had to sign deals for potentially much worse films, edging out the competition. They also locked down stars, directors, and other creatives in exclusivity contracts in what they called a star system, meaning being a fan of these stars made you a fan of the studio, giving them more brand loyalty. The Big Five really dominated the industry by controlling all aspects and by controlling what people could watch. They controlled who could make money off of the films. Eventually, the US government stepped in and we got what's referred to as the Paramount Decree, meaning that studios couldn't block book the way they used to, and it prevented the blind buying of films in the way that was standard at the time, amongst other things. This led to the independent film boom starting in the 50s and led to the rise of both foreign films in North America and the new Hollywood wave of the 60s and the 70s. If you are unfamiliar, New Hollywood was a wave of indie filmmakers who not only worked outside the classic Hollywood system, but made films in a new and exciting way, tackling sometimes controversial and definitely important social themes. This was the era of some of our great filmmakers. Scorsese, Spielberg, Coppola, Lucas, they all got their start here. There would be no Star Wars if it wasn't for the Paramount Decree. No Taxi Driver, Jaws, The Godfather, none of it. And yes, it was still a wave of mostly straight white men as the main creative voices of the time, but that grittier, darker, more realistic approach a lot of these filmmakers took absolutely makes it one of the most important periods in film history. And we got it by taking power away from the Big Five. So, why is this story so important now? Two main reasons. One is that the Paramount Decree has been sunset. My cat's going crazy. In 2019, the US Antitrust Division began to review decrees that had no expiration dates on them. This led to them starting a 2-year sunset of this decree in 2020, despite the independent movie theater owners being against it. Now, I worry about this because I already see how our current major studios are in a position to jump on this. I worked at a movie theater for 5 years, so I've seen a bit of how it works. The reason new Marvel movies play on half the screens isn't just because it's guaranteed to sell those seats, but because Disney does have a minimum screen requirement when they write up deals with the theaters. It's easy to see how much more of a monopoly Disney can have if they aren't just imposing screen minimums on the theaters for major films, but also if they require you to screen 3 other films that they slapdash put together and that they would have otherwise been deleting off of Disney Plus weeks after it had come out. And not only that, but it can give the opportunity to any Hollywood heavyweight. Earlier this year, Tom Cruise tried to convince major theaters to give up the IMAX screens that they had dedicated to Oppenheimer to extend the run of the latest Mission Impossible film. And he did that because Mr. I Care About Cinema only really cares when it's his movie, something that he's involved in. The second reason is, of course, the current strikes. Both the WGA and SAG are fighting against the AMPTP, which is essentially the new, more united take on the Big Five. They are fighting for better wages for their work, more time and manpower to produce the work well, and safeguards from AI taking their work away from them completely. There are a lot of people online who don't get the strike. They view anybody who works in the industry as Hollywood elites, the rich trying to get richer while making content that is, quote, worse than ever, and nothing but remakes and sequels. But that is not the case. They are fighting against the elite, against the people who are trying to control every step of the process and churn out as much low-effort, low-risk content as possible. New Hollywood was only something that was able to come about because of the restrictions put on the studios. And it proves the importance of independent, artistically driven art. That's why over 30, over 50, I think even over 100 at this point, independent productions who are in solidarity with the unions are still permitted to keep working during the strike. Working class writers and actors cannot keep going making what they love without these changes. They cannot support themselves and their families because of the greed of people who want emotionless, unimaginative robots doing the creating. If you care at all about the quality of the film and television you consume, you need to be supporting the strikers. If you don't, things won't get any better. If you don't, then things won't get better. And more importantly than that, I think it means you're a bad person. Alright, that about does it for this one. Something real different than what I usually do here, but it's something I'm passionate about and wanted to talk about. If it is something you are able to do, I would highly suggest supporting the strike financially, because these people need to be making money to pay their bills while they're striking, because honestly, that's what the studios are trying to do, is make a bunch of people homeless so they'll give up. I'll put links below if you can donate, and if you can't, share it around with people you know in case maybe they can. More regular media stuff from me coming soon, but I felt like this was more important to make first, because even though I'm not really a voice to a huge audience, I think every voice matters in things like this. Also, thank you so much to everyone who watched my last video on Futurama. It's been doing really well for me, and thank you so much if you then tuned into this one because of it. Until next time, have a good one.